it continues oftentimes for years and years. And so, we talk about this extended period of high stress, trauma, and situations that you have no control over, because you don't. Once a person gets involved in the prison system, the legal system at any level, control is lost in their lives. They are at the mercy of people who don't know them, who don't care about them, who don't see them even really a lot of times as human beings. And so as those people who are caring for them, it's incredibly difficult. And this, even thinking about seeking help for yourself when you're seeing the suffering of somebody who you love, it is.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Living Life Trauma Free podcast. I have another return guest, Jolyn Armstrong, and we're going to be talking about secondary trauma. The impact trauma has on families when they have a loved one who's been incarcerated. She goes into depth about some of the difficulties and the challenges it is that the families experience during that very challenging time. Before we get started, remember, hit the subscribe button, click that little notification bell, and make sure you give the content a thumbs up if you enjoy the interview. Let's get going. Hey Jolyn, welcome.
Hi there, Wendy. It's such a pleasure.
We're going to be talking about secondary trauma today and the prison system, the impact that trauma has, the secondary trauma has on the families of the people who have gone into prison. Which I'm very excited to talk about, because I have to be honest, this isn't an angle I've looked at before. So let's get straight into it.
Yes.
Jolyn, tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, Wendy, don't feel bad about not thinking that much about this, because most people don't until they're in it. And I certainly hadn't. So I'll just give you a little bit of background where I came from and how I got into this world a little bit. So I have, completely separate from what we're talking about today, my husband and I own a marketing business that we just run from our laptops, from anywhere, digital nomads, like a bunch of us are nowadays. And just, working and living with my absolute best friend, living the best life I can think of living, just a completely idyllic life, right? Going wherever we felt like going at any time. And so there was just one normal day. It happened to be in a January day. I was in California, Northern California at the time, and just a normal work day for me. And end of my work day, I noticed like several missed calls on my cell phone. For some reason, it just hadn't rung. I don't know why, but several missed calls from a phone number that I didn't recognize, but the phone number was in Colorado, which was where my son was stationed in the military at the time, just by chance. And I thought, oh my gosh, my son is like, he's being deployed. That's probably what these 4 calls in a row are, right? And I was terrified by that. And so I played the first voicemail, and it wasn't from the military saying my son was being deployed, but it was actually a recorded message from a county jail where my son had been arrested and was now currently in jail. And at that time, I had no idea how any of this worked, what was going on, how to even get in touch with my son. Like they had left me 4 messages, but it wasn't really from my son. It was a recorded message. And I tried calling the jail back. And of course, those people who are familiar with the prison or jail systems at all know that you can't just reach somebody who's in jail. They don't take a message, or they don't like patch you through. It's nothing like that. And so I wasn't even able to speak with my son until the next day. And so I had no idea. But when I found out the charges that my son had and the sentence that he was facing, the potential sentence he was facing, I knew right then that my entire life was going to change. This idyllic life that I had was now, I mean, it was, yeah, everything was going to be different. And I was horrified. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I wish he would have been deployed. Like,
Wow.
I thought, oh, it was my biggest fear before he was arrested.
Yeah.
And now, and I thought, oh my gosh. And so this world that I got plunged into through this arrest and, the trial and all of that, he didn't actually go to trial, but all of the legal pieces of that took almost a year. So a year of tumult and just chaos in my life. And then ultimately a prison sentence where I thought I would never see him again. I thought he's going to be gone forever. He'll probably die in prison. And just all of the things like the catastrophizing that went on in my head, which was, I went through a period of time where I was really embarrassed about that, but I'm completely justified, right? That's part of what trauma does is that whole catastrophizing piece. And so I'll tell you, it was my first real experience with trauma. And as an adult, delving into that. And before I feel like my life was so super easy, and then I get shoved into this. And not only was I trauma was affecting me at every turn. It affected my marriage, which had been wonderful and beautiful and continues to be today. But I mean, it really took a hit that year and probably the year after as well. My business took a hit. I had to like cancel some of my most profitable things I did with my clients because I didn't have the bandwidth to handle that anymore at that point. I think of every piece of my life was just wrecked. And at the same time, I'm thinking, my son had been in the military, and I have a real deep respect for our, soldiers that come back from military conflict and have, really severe PTSD diagnoses. And for me, I'm thinking, man, I'm feeling all of these things. I'm affected in all of these ways. I'm never sleeping anymore. I'm crying every day. I refused to even think that I was actually traumatized, right? Because I had such a healthy respect for what I saw as real trauma that I just thought, no, this, okay, I'm being weak here. I'm the mother. So I guess I get to be weak a little bit because I'm terrified for my son, but here I am, and so it took a minute. And then thinking about the fact that you can be traumatized when something happens to someone else and how that, this is where that secondary trauma comes in. How can him going through this affect me in this way? And why do I deserve any of this, right? Am I deserving of trauma, right? Or help through trauma? Like, how is this? He's going through this, not me, right? So secondary trauma has its own little insidious tentacles, I guess. And part of that is the denial piece. Right.
It sounds like quite a big piece, the denial piece. I mean, denial is normal in trauma. I guess that's the first thing to say. Denial is perfectly normal in trauma. People will deny trauma for the whole of their life. So I think you did incredibly well, in such a short period of time, because you were also living in it as well, to see it and recognize it for what it was. So can you think of the tipping point where you were like, actually, this is what it is? Okay, yeah. I can work with this.
I know exactly when that happened, and it wasn't overnight, but it was, and I talk about trauma being that kind of great isolator, right?
Yeah.
I was withdrawing from everyone, including my husband, who I'm very close with. But I felt very alone in what I was going through. Now he was going through it too, right? And my other children, I have 3 adult sons. My other 2 sons were affected as well. But I feel like I'm alone in this. And I should be strong for others. And so then there's that shame piece too, right? And it took my husband saying, Jolyn, this is not like you, right? You are suffering, and you're suffering way more than you need to. And I really think you need some help. And for me, it took him saying that a number of times for me to accept it and to realize that, right? And and so then when he was telling me, our business is really suffering, I took offense to that at first. I'm like, I'm a good business person. It's not, it's suffering some, but how can it not, right? And it's not because of this thing that you're telling me, this trauma thing that you're telling me about. It's not because of that. It's just, all these other things or whatever, And so it took my husband gently suggesting a number of times to say, can we get us some help? I'll go with you. He offered to go with me. He offered to find the person, make the appointment for me, whatever. Yeah. And it took that in the beginning. And now I look back and I'm like, dang it, why did I put him through that? Well, I put him through that because I was traumatized. Yeah. And I know that now, but I went again through that healing process. You go through like, why did I let that go on? Why did I put my loved ones through these things? And it's the injury, right? It's the injury you sustained in that trauma.
It's fascinating, isn't it, that the pain that being traumatized caused, the level of isolation, the disconnect, the effect on the marriage, your kids, the business. I mean, let's face it, those are all extremely difficult challenges to deal with. And yet the trauma is creating such a level of inner conflict to keep you away from fear, that it's actually created something that is so much more bigger than what it is that you really need to look at.
Right. It's this avalanche, this snowball effect that it has. And there's not an area of life that it's not willing to wreck. Right. It's really a very powerful force for sure. And so left unchecked, I say that left unchecked, it grows and it affects everything, right? Whether you realize it or not, it can. And for our prison families, what I found amazing at first, it took me a while to realize this too, because I felt so incredibly alone, and trauma survivors do, right? You are completely alone in this. I don't care if the entire world is going through the same thing I'm going through. I'm alone in this. And I'm ashamed of it. And especially our prison families, the shame is so severe because society assumes if someone commits a crime, a lot of times families are really, really ostracized, right? And for their community, the media is insidious with families of people who commit crimes. It's amazing to me now. I didn't even notice it before, but I'll tell you, you watch when a crime occurs, especially one that's of some notoriety, right? Notice where the news crews go. Right? They don't go to the jail where the person's being held, not very often. Most often it's to the family home. And the family gets chased down and followed. And whether the family had any clue or not that what was going to happen, or what was going on, it's the story, right? They get followed, they get highlighted, they get ostracized, they get hounded. And it's so to add injury to injury, right? It's this kind of social pressure and this social isolation that happens to our prison families. It's just shocking to me. And as we realize it more, I get more angry when I watch the news. I'm like, just leave them alone, please. And so
the news has got a lot to answer for. The media,
oh my goodness.
And just the media to me just reinforces trauma. It's a media, it's a trauma generator, the news.
Right.
It's feeding off it.
Yeah. And when you're They should be, absolutely. I think they will have some things to ask for or answer for, but that's another podcast for another time. But
yep.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But I'm more cognizant of that now as I just interact with the world too. And when I always, my heart just goes out to prison families, people who are going through this, and we just don't realize what they go through. And you see, social media comments when a news story comes on, social media, and everyone hang him or whatever it is, right? They start describing all the ways that we should punish this person, not even thinking for one moment that there's there is always more to the story than the headline that you've read, right? And there are people who probably love that person who are exposed to these comments as well. And I just think, after having gone through this myself, I just have such a heart for these families. I've been on the phone and on Zoom calls with mothers who tell me, my son, he made a mistake, but now he's not getting enough to eat. He feels like he's starving in prison, and how can I eat when he can't eat? And the trauma that families go through the experiences of their families is so immense. And it's not just during like the trial period, and that, while the news is all hyped up, it continues oftentimes for years and years. And so, we talk about this extended period of high stress trauma in situations that you have no control over, because you don't. Once a person gets involved in the prison system, the legal system at any level, control is lost in their lives. They are at the mercy of people who don't know them, who don't care about them, who don't see them even really a lot of times as human beings. And so, as those people who are caring for them, it's incredibly difficult. And this, even thinking about seeking help for yourself when you're seeing the suffering of somebody who you love, it's so difficult. Oh my God. Even just to convince people, please just take care of yourself. Right.
Yeah.
So
secondary trauma is quite interesting, I think, because it's not something that's really spoken about, secondary trauma. As you touched on about the staff that not seeing the I don't like calling them prisoners, the people inside. I struggle with that
people
word.
Who are incarcerated. Right.
Yeah, or just people who are incarcerated, not seeing them as human. They must also be experiencing quite a lot of secondary trauma, which hasn't been processed, which means that then that breeds more trauma, breeds more stress, breeds more anxiety, makes them close off. So it's a bit of a beast when you look at the different levels of media, family, the individual that committed the crime, the actual structure and system that they've gone into. You've got multiple layers of unhealed trauma, because it's not being addressed at any level unless you're aware enough, like your husband, and you get the support and the help to help you do the best you can in that situation and to manage it day by day. Is that it's all a bit stuck. It's all a bit
right. Well, and when we talk about people who are incarcerated, and even we can include all of the jail and prison staff as well. The life expectancy for prison guards is very, very low. Very low. It's shocking. Yes. And so it's I mean, every day you're in this completely unsafe environment. You cannot let your guard down as a person who's incarcerated or a person who's guarding the incarcerated. You can never let your guard down. for extended periods of time. I mean, you think about that. It is aging emotionally, it's aging to the body. It's, you know, people who are incarcerated, at least in the US, are considered elderly at age 50.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's, it's like, it's something, you know, and so, and again, like taking that step back, the secondary trauma, those people who are supporting them, I focus really mainly on families of those. That's, you know, my business is the photo project, families of the accused. For a reason, I really focus on kind of the hidden kind of prisoners, right? Those people who are serving a sentence on the outside because they are affected in so many ways that, you know, and the financial aspect of it alone is really awful. A lot of times those people who are incarcerated are the main breadwinners for the families. So when that's lost, and now we have, you know, single parents trying to deal with a loved one incarcerated and children to raise and the whole bit, it's like this onion peeling back. It's so, it's a big problem. Right.
I can see that it's huge. Have you ever worked with or thought about actually going into the prison system and working with the prison guards within the actual structure itself?
You know, there are organizations that do that I love, and I've done some work with. So there's one that I'll just name here if that's okay. And it's so the Compassion Prison Project is one in the US who they go into prisons and of course haven't been able to during the pandemic so much. It's just starting up again, but they help perform a visual version of the ACEs quiz. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
So ACEs are adverse childhood experiences.
Okay.
Right? So ACE. And there's an ACE quiz online. You can look it up. Just Google ACE quiz online. And it's a series of, I want to say maybe it's 10 questions about childhood traumas. What did you experience, you know, before the age of 18? You know, did you experience your mother being beaten, being hit, you know, those kinds of things? Did you ever experience hunger? Those, you know, several questions like that. And what we've seen is those people who are incarcerated average about 7 ACEs. So these 7 real, and that's the average. Like a lot of them have all 10 of what's considered adverse childhood experiences. And you know, when I took the ACE quiz, because I was curious about it, I have one only. And so when I think about these people,
hang on a minute, one only? One's quite significant.
I know, one is a big deal, right? And so
exactly. I just want to stop you there. Well, I've only got one only.
I love that you point that out, because that was my initial shame in working with this group. Like, oh, I only have one, and who am I even to? But yeah, isn't that funny that we even being educated about it, we still are like, meh. Right. Yeah. So anyway, the purpose, I think, of going into these prisons and doing the ACE quiz in a way that there's a short documentary, very short documentary called Step Inside the Circle. That's amazing. You can find it on YouTube. It's just touches my heart. And that was done by Compassion Prison Project. So what they did was they went inside a US maximum security prison, and they did this in early 2020, so not that long ago, just before everything locked down. And they got these people who were incarcerated in this giant circle. There were, I want to say, I don't know how many there were.
Big guys as well, aren't they? I remember seeing
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Right. So they get them in this big circle and they tell them, you know, they read the questions to the ACE quiz, and with every yes answer, they take a step inside the circle. Right. Yeah. And you see these men and they're just breaking down as they're going in the circle, and then talking about it afterwards and seeing the heart that these men have, and the realization that, oh my gosh, you know, I've been through a lot. I've been through a whole lot here. And a lot of the things that I've done in my life, I'm just now realizing have been trauma responses, right? I've lashed out because I've been unsafe. I've been afraid. This is the only thing I know. This is what I've been drawn to, right? Because trauma does that to you.
Yeah.
And so, yes. And so, in doing that, they land in prison. Right. And it's like, oh, we're not addressing the trauma at all. And so part of the purpose of going in and doing that is to bring compassion to even these actions that we've seen in the past as just being so horrible, right? These are trauma responses we're seeing. And we need some recovery tools for this. Right. And punishment is what we've traditionally done. And keeping society safe is a thing, and I'm in no way condoning crime at all. But I think, taking a look at the actual causes of what's going on in our world around us may be, something that we can do to help, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great video. If people haven't watched it, Step Inside the Circle, it's excellent. And I think there was a longer version that came out recently about trauma. I can't remember his name for the life of me. That's also very good as well.
Oh, gotcha. So Step Inside the Circle was used in the documentary. Gabor Mate was.
That's
was
it.
Yeah. I'm going to forget the name of it.
I'll put a link below. I can't remember it either.
No, but it's beautiful. And you're right. He is an amazing, amazing person for sure. His work with addiction and trauma and the roots of addiction there too. Another topic
in its own right. I know. So one final question: do the families reach out to you, or do you reach out to the families?
So typically families will reach out to me, honestly, when and I love when this happens, because people when they finally are able to reach out, and I hope I love the ones that reach out super early, right? Like, oh my gosh, this happened and I'm terrified and all of this and I need some help. Some of them, it takes a little bit longer. But when they reach out to me, a lot of time, I don't think the general public realizes the level of trauma that happens when, your fear for your loved one in the prison system. First of all, there's a lot of misinformation about our prison system and anyway, in the US, and, the kinds of things that can go on in prisons. It's a lot of it sensationalized, and which brings so much fear onto these families, right? It's, oh my gosh. And so I do work with an organization called Prison Families Alliance, and we offer free support groups for families all over the world. We do have families within the US and outside the US, and we have support groups, several a week. And they're all free. People can join via Zoom. It's real easy we make it as easy as we can for them to join and seek some help and some connection with people who understand them. And, I facilitate several of those, but then I work one-on-one with my clients through the Photo Project. And a lot of my clients come through those support groups, but others come, they'll find me in different places and reach out to me. Just like, I don't even know how to breathe. I don't know how to sleep at night. I don't, and help me here, because I'm all alone here. And so that connection is so important. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So nobody should have to go through that alone. And, my hope is that nobody does. There are still people out there suffering, but my hope is that people can, as we continue to raise awareness of how difficult this is for prison families, that we can, put our arms around each other and help each other and stay connected. So
is there a link? Sorry, another question. I don't know how appropriate this is, but this just came to mind. Is there a link between families and the suicide rate?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So are you saying higher suicide rates potentially in prison families?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't have the exact numbers, but when you are, again, when we're experiencing long periods of trauma, the effects of that, like there's the initial shock of, a sudden arrest, but
Yeah.
a lot of families, like, they may not even be surprised about it, right? With addiction, especially in the US, like families come to me like, I'm almost relieved that they're incarcerated now, because I'm not, like, at least I know they're alive. I know where they are.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so this
Yeah.
long-term stress that they go through and the tumult, suicide rates definitely are higher. I wish I had the exact number for you.
No, it's okay. It was a question that popped my head in, because it's such the shame is so high.
Right.
Shame.
The shame and grief too, because when you lose a loved one to the system, right, it's almost like a death. You can't be with them anymore. Holidays aren't the same. Special occasions aren't the same. They're there, but they're not there. And at any moment they can be ripped away from you and you wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? It's just all, so it's, there are those who succumb to that the pressure becomes too great. It's when you can connect with others, there's some safety there. And that's part of my hope there, is that we can find that safety and really envelop those that are feeling that, just that inability to go on, and I tell my clients this a lot, and we say this in the groups a lot, to think about, especially a long incarceration, how am I going to do this for 10, 20, 25 years? How am I going to do this? This is a common question that comes up. Oh my gosh, I am not going to make it. I'm not going to make it through this. And I always tell them, you don't have to right now. All you have to do is today, right? Just make it through today.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can get through the next 5 minutes, okay, let's do that together.
Yeah.
Right. So when you talk about, when people reach that point, it's let's just get you through today.
Yeah. So, I always say today is preparation for tomorrow. What can you do today for tomorrow? And forget the rest of it. You've just got to literally get through today and tomorrow, and then you can eventually, those little steps snowball, and you learn different coping strategies for dealing with things.
Right.
People who are listening to this, what can they do? What would you say is the best for them to do, Jolyn, to reach out to get the help that they need?
Yes. Yeah. So I think, it is so important, especially in this situation. There's such a huge learning curve with prison systems, and some of them are kind of similar around the world, but just knowing how to navigate the emotional side of it too. You know what I mean? Like, how do I deal with information I'm getting that doesn't, like, all of the things, there's so much. Going through it alone, I please don't ever do that. It's so, oh my gosh. So I would say, yes, definitely reach out. And Wendy, what I can do is, create a landing page with some tools and some tips.
Brilliant.
And with my contact information for your listeners as well, that will link them with the photo project as well.
Yeah, great.
So how about let's give one resource, and then I can connect. If somebody's going through something, I can help connect you to, the groups that are free and all of those things as well, and other folks going through what you're going through. So let's do this. The photoproject.org/TRM will be a great place for your listeners to go. And if you can link that would be awesome.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's great. I mean, the more help we can give people, the better.
Yeah,
no, I mean,
definitely.
You're so much in the rawness of it.
Oh, yes.
It's really, and you've got to deal with it now.
Right.
Right. You can't go, oh no, I'll deal with that next year or a month.
I'm gonna put that on the shelf. No. Yeah. It's, I mean, I do compare it to, like, I've had a heart attack and I need some medical attention,
It's crisis management is what I'm thinking. It's crisis management.
Yeah, for sure. We wind up always starting there, and then, okay, how can I do this long term? You know, once I've got this down, like learning those steps. How do you eat an elephant? You know, one bite at a time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. So I think that's best. The photoproject.org/TRM would be great.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's great. So any final thoughts?
Wendy, I appreciate you for what you're doing, and thank you so much. And just know, you know, for your listeners, if you're going through this, or you know anyone who's going through most of us, once I bring it up, most people that I talk to about having had a son who's incarcerated, they either have a close loved one incarcerated, or they know someone who has. So if you know someone going through this, they're probably going through more than they've let you know, right? And point them in the direction of some help, please, because they likely really need it.
Or even invite them out for a cup of tea, as we would say in England. Cup of tea and a bit of cake.
Yes, it is so important. You don't have to know what to say either. You just be with them. That's it. So thank you for that. Yes, that's perfect.
Welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed learning more about secondary trauma in this context, because it's definitely not something that I had thought about before.
Yeah. And again, don't feel bad about that, because most people really haven't. It's just, and thank you for helping me shine some light on that, because it's important.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you've stayed with me this far, please do hit the subscribe bell, whichever side it's on. Make sure you click the notification bell and give a thumbs up if you enjoyed the interview. Also, please share on Twitter, post on Facebook, and link on LinkedIn.